All right, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at out here. It is the Earthmaster back at it on this Wednesday, December 27th, 2023 date. It is about 1:14 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity shows 2.1 on the big island of Hawaii. Did see some movement there in California just a little bit ago. Also some activity up here south of Iceland. It's in the divergent boundary zones there, so we're going to check out the latest update there across the Iceland area. And they did put out an update here today. The Icelandic Met Office shows that the likelihood of the next eruption increases day by day due to the elevated accumulation of magma below the area. Now, since December 22nd of this month, around 730 earthquakes or so have been recorded in the vicinity of the magma intrusion. A couple of those earthquakes were above M1. Now, ground deformation continues in the Svartsengi region, and the rate of deformation is now similar to before the eruption on the 18th of this month. That means that magma continues to accumulate underneath the Svartsengi area, and therefore increasingly likely that another magma intrusion will occur, possibly leading to a second volcanic eruption. Geodetic model results indicate that over 10 million M3 of magma were sourced from beneath the Svartsengi area to feed the intrusion that formed on the 18th of December, which led to this most recent fissure activity, as you can see there in the map. Based on the ongoing uplift rate, it will take 1 to 2 weeks for the same amount of magma to accumulate underneath this area again, underneath the Svartsengi area. There is still significant uncertainty on when the built-up magma pressure will be sufficient to trigger the next magma intrusion. It should be noted that the original magma intrusion, which formed back on November 10th, extended 15 kilometers from this area right here in the north to the southwest of Grindavik, just offshore. This means that magma propagated at depth beneath the entire area, including the town of Grindavik. However, the most likely source area for the next eruption is between the Hagafell area and this region just to the north of that area right here. So still need to work on my correct pronunciations there on some of those words. Based on insights from the December 2023 eruption, the likelihood for the next event increases day by day. Still seeing elevated GPS movement with a pretty sharp rise here. I know it shows down here on this chart, but you have to remember once it goes off a certain level upwards, that it will just be replaced a little bit further down on the graph. But we're still going up. This is the vertical displacement here, indicating, again, some sharp rises going on. The eruption, which occurred back on the 18th, is obviously clearly visible, right? So it did drop a little bit. This second line right here is the sharp uptick from about the early November time period. Again, that would go off the chart, so they're dropping this a little bit here to show the large amount of increasing uptick there in the vertical displacement across the Svartsengi area. But we're going up again, folks. We're going up and up and up. So it looks like we'll probably see this kick up here soon. Again, they're saying that it'd take 2 to 3 weeks, or 1 to 2 weeks here, for the same amount of magma to accumulate underneath the area once again. Let's go check out live images here from the Iceland area. Live from Iceland is the site to go to for some really awesome shots of the Iceland area. You can see the old fissures out here in the distant. That blackness there on the snow. That's the old lava field. Old now, but it was pretty active here. About almost 10 days or so ago. Nothing visible here from this area for now. But again, magma is accumulating underneath the area, the Svartsengi area, and we'll continue to watch that and report back on any major changes should they take place there. The last 12 hours of earthquake activity, about 43 earthquakes or so. Looks like the majority of it down here across the Grindavik region And of course, the area of interest is going to be roughly about here southward, where that magma intrusion has taken place. And that includes the town of Grindavik and then just offshore. It's possible, definitely possible, we could see that migration of magma fissure activity open up down south here. But they're stating that the most likely area is in that same region where we've seen this last fissure activity open up between Hagafell and this area right here. But, it's not 100% certain that it won't open down here. Good possibility, because they believe that's where that magma intrusion has taken place. So we'll continue to watch that, and again, I'll report back on anything. Got to watch this because last time we've seen some divergent boundary activity out here south of the Iceland region. We did see things kind of kick up the days following activity, and we did see a 5.0 here earlier this morning. We'll continue to watch for some further uptick there across the Iceland area. Southern California did have a little earthquake activity here in the last hour or so. South of Morro Bay, Pismo Beach area, away from the populated areas, but it was a 3.1, about 6.2 kilometers deep. Uncertain, though, on which fault system this may have struck on. There's a couple different ones down here, but 3.1 kicking up here. Again, earlier, just about an hour and a half or so ago. Felt reports coming in from the area. Not a whole lot, but a few folks did feel that three-pointer. Further down south here, looking at some general microquake activity across the region. The Coso range over here, the old volcanic field, did show some movement out here yesterday and today. A couple of twos and even a three-pointer coming into this area earlier this morning. So kind of a little swarm going on out there, about 2 kilometers deep or so. This has been an area that's shown a little bit of uptick here recently. So continue to keep an eye on that area. Further across the country here, we got one earthquake out in the New Madrid seismic zone, shaking things up. That's a somewhat of a larger one than we've seen here recently, 3.8 coming in. I'm sure a lot of folks may have felt this in the area. As you can see there on the shake map, a lot of people did report feeling that. And again, that's out there in the New Madrid seismic zone. This area very capable of producing some large damaging earthquakes, and it's been a little while. It is listed up here on the hazard map from the USGS as one of the highest zones in the country, secondary to the west coast out here, of course. But just a heads up, that's definitely some interesting activity stirring up out there. Go back here, get rid of the hazard map. So just be safe. Haven't really seen, let me check the last 30 days here and see what we've got. Haven't really seen too much activity here in the last couple of months. That's why I was saying that 3.8, little bit of a shocker, somewhat of a larger magnitude than what we've seen here in the recent past compared to these little microquakes out here. So just be safe out there. Let's see. Let me get back here to California. I know we kind of bounced around from SoCal eastward. Northern California, there's not a whole lot going on. Some generally small microquake activity across the region. And, of course, the Clear Lake volcanic field. This is the hydrothermal operations ongoing out here across these facilities. One of these earthquakes very close here to the hydrothermal plant. And there's a whole process involved in creating some green energy out there in California. All right, what else we got here? Worldwide activity, Hawaii. Anything major going on out here? Doesn't look like it in terms of the Kilauea volcano. The latest earthquake, though, shows a 2.2. Let's go ahead and double check the latest information statement here on the USGS site. This was put out today. Kilauea Daily Update. The volcano is not erupting. And basically the same wording as the past, quite a few past updates here. Summit tilt remains flat after the last deflation event on December 23rd. But it's still at its highest level of inflation prior to the most recent eruption back in 2023, and at its highest since 2018. So things are still elevated there in that region. Let me go check out the tilt meter here real quick. Stand by for a second. Kilauea and tilt meters. Let's see, are they working today? Hopefully they are. UWE, there we go. Looks like we're taking a sharp increase here in inflation in the last few hours. And that's going to put us very close to the highest level. We're about level in terms of this past few days or so, but this level here is highest than any other inflation event that we've seen since 2018. So things are swelling pretty good underneath the area. Earthquake activity, we did see a few earthquakes listed here. Looks like things are starting to pick up in the last few hours since that inflation event began. This does kind of remind me of some magma movement, magma activity there on the chart, and I'm sure we would see that across other stations in the vicinity as well. Let's go check out east. Well, this is kind of a weird looking chart. Let me see here. See, there's that activity again showing up. Yeah, that's definitely some fluid movement going on down there. And of course, with the fluid movement, you would expect to see elevated inflation activity, and that's kind of what's going on there. Sharp inflation followed up, or at the same time as these readings. So no doubt things are getting active. We'll watch this pretty closely here. That's somewhat of an elevated event. Let me see here what we got for the crater area right now. Lava Lake region looks pretty quiet. Aside from some volcanic gases here across just the top of this observation tower there. No visible eruptive activity, but we'll continue to watch that for sure. All right, up into the Alaska area. Still seeing some movement up here across the Aleutian Trench. Not a whole lot of large-scale movement overnight, though. Still waiting on some activity out here in the Japan area. They did see quite a bit of deep movement out here in the last couple days. Really doesn't look like we've seen anything overnight. One little 4.1 up here into the bend, northern edge of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, it looks like. Still a little deep activity there. But this has gone quiet now after all that deep activity. There's a little 5-pointer here into the Indonesia Islands area. It's going to be right here. Fairly shallow. South Pacific Ocean did see some activity as well earlier this morning, a 5.4 coming in, divergent zone, so we should expect some further activity across the Peru-Chile Trench here, potentially. Down into the Vanuatu area, looks like we got one earthquake here earlier this morning. This has been kind of our quiet zone over the last few days. It's been awfully quiet across this area. Solomon Islands, though, has not seen any activity between this little this stretch of plate boundary here. So I'm not for sure what's going on, but it's been eerily quiet. We'll keep these quiet zones in view, because normally when they stay quiet like that for a few days or longer, then we get some bigger activity stirring up. A little bit of movement out here across the Mediterranean and Middle East today. Quite a few 4s and 3s popping up all over the place. A little bit of swarming going on out there. Let's see, USGS reporting some of that. 4.7 there in northern Turkey earlier this morning. Also a little odd 3.5. I say odd because most of the time USGS does not report these smaller earthquakes, but they're reporting it. 3.5 here, looks like that's just even a 2.7 being reported. Goodness. All right. Let's put the international community on the map. I would love to see an option here across this their webpage to include the smaller quakes out here across the globe. instead of their typical 4.5 and above or 4.1 and above. All right, let's see what else we got. So movement out in the northern Atlantic kicking up. Watch Iceland. Looks like EMSC reporting that as a 4.1. That's kind of odd seeing that there on the globe. Has that been reviewed? Let me double check that and see. 3.8, 4.1. That's a little bit of a difference. It has been reviewed. Magnitudes here. They're going with this station right here. Most of these magnitudes, these estimated magnitudes by various stations here, do show threes, even some down into the 2 range magnitude. So more than likely the 3.8 is indeed a 3.8 and not up into the 4 range. I'm not seeing anything that would average out the potential of a 4.0 or 4.1 magnitude that the EMSC is reporting here. But so I believe that's firmly a 3.8. And yeah, just goodness. Let me show you guys real quick here. A lot of people, I mean, we studied this in school. I think they're still teaching that in school, right? Hopefully. The 1800 earthquakes back then. I'll show you guys real quick. I think they have it listed up on the map. I'm sure they do. Yeah, back in when was the most recent one? It looks like 1843. That was a 6.3, but it was the 1811 quakes that really shook things up out here. 7.3, 7.5. Look at all those earthquakes back from 1811. They had a series of large earthquakes, with the largest one being that 7.5 here. That following year. So this area, goodness, can get some huge earthquakes. A 7.5 today out there would be extremely damaging. Extremely damaging. So that 3.8 just giving us a good indicator that the potential stress and strain is out there still. And hopefully we're not going to see that anytime soon. I'm not for sure what the regular occurrence intervals are on this, but definitely of concern, that's for sure. If you got a few minutes this afternoon, I would definitely look into that if you're out there in that area or interested in learning more about it. It's a pretty crazy series of events back there. A lot of geologists thinking that because this area hasn't seen any larger quake activity, that the strain, since these events, that the strain may be building somewhere else. But I don't believe that. We see earthquakes here in this region quite a bit. But that 3.8, I would say, is about the largest we've seen here in a little while. Let me I'm going to check something else real quick here again. I want to see how many earthquakes we've had out there this year. We're just going to go back to 2022. We'll make it easy and draw a little rectangle on the map, and we'll get a good indicator of what's been going on here, just specifically around the New Madrid seismic zone. Obviously, we get some earthquakes here across the mountain range and the oil fields out west, but I just want to see this specific area so far. Well, technically within the last year. So we got 387 earthquakes. That's not a large number. I mean, we have that probably in a couple days down in Texas. So this is over a year in terms of the earthquake activity, and you can firmly see the potential fault system out here, the New Madrid seismic zone. It's marked pretty clearly here on the hazard map, and also just looking at the earthquake activity. So I believe that this thing is building up some steam here for the next big earthquake out in the New Madrid seismic zone. Of course, see what we got for the largest. That's going to be that 3.8 today. I don't remember the last time we've seen anything larger in this area. Let's see here. I'm going to modify this, and I'm going to go back. Let's go back to the year 2000. Fun year. Let's see here and search that real quick. It's going to be a lot more earthquakes, obviously. 6,461. And that's in the last 23 years. Almost 24 years here or so. It looks like some of the larger ones there in the 4 range. Back in 2003 or so. Maybe we did have, it looks like we did have a 4-pointer back in 2021, but that's kind of outside of the New Madrid seismic zone. There's one inside of it, a couple inside of it back in 2005. So just seeing all this activity here and thinking about the time that has passed since the last, big earthquake activity out here, no doubt that is building up quite a bit of strain out here in this region for some big activity. But yeah, 4.2, that's the largest it looks like out here since 2005. So, a lot of people think California is just the only areas that's going to see large earthquake activity. Well, that is not the case, and that 3.8 today just lets us know that. So stay safe out there. Let's see what else we got. Some further movement here across the Coso Range, it looks like. And one little earthquake down outside the San Diego area, 1328. That probably showed up on the Barrett station here. Maybe that little spike of an earthquake. It looks like... Now that's a little odd. We got a Hot Caves, Hawaii station there showing 2 distinct spikes. And then thousands of miles away, Lake Yellowstone is showing 2 distinct spikes. The Yellowstone National Park supervolcano and then Hot Caves, Hawaii. What is the chances of that? Could they be related, or is this just odd timing? You guys see that, right? 2 distinct earthquakes right here on this one, Hot Caves, Hawaii, and then Lake Yellowstone. That's very odd. Almost make me think that they're nearby, but they're not. Goodness, something going on underneath the Pacific North American plate here recently. All right, let's see what else we got. Did I skip anything out here? There's an odd earthquake up in Russia from last night. Again, still waiting on some potential activity out here in the shallower range across the western areas of the Pacific plate. All right, New Zealand, 3.1. That one looks, it looks like it's split out there between the North and South Island. Let me cover that region real quick. See what's going on. There's that 3.1. Looks like it's southeast of Collingwood area. About 8 hours or so ago. A little bit of movement being reported. Nothing big, though. This is another area that's potentially overdue for some large earthquake activity. There's that 3-pointer. Showing up pretty nicely there across the South Island stations. Aside from that, looks kind of clear out there in terms of earthquake activity. All right, space weather activity. Here we go. Got back down into the flat line again. Dipping down into the B flare category. Goodness, solar minimum. Well, it's supposed to be solar maximum. It kind of feels like solar minimum. Yeah, we're below the C flare category right now. No major flares. We're not really expecting anything. 95% chance for a C flare. M flare at 15. X flare 1% chance. These are generous numbers. Look at that M flare. 15% chance. Goodness. That is extremely low. Coronal hole number... Was that number 86 there? Taking his time, but that will be in the Earth position here in a couple days, pending this holds up. And that could amplify the aurora conditions out here as we head into the new year. Really not expecting much, though, in the terms of aurora forecasting out there. There's not a whole lot of hope in terms of seeing that for now. You look at the magnetogram image here of the latest sunspots out here, and wow, goodness, there's a couple different sunspots, but it looks even less than yesterday, and they're all just kind of fading out like the wind. We do have a little sunspot region down here. This is a newer one. It's been kind of back building on each side here of the main core. It has not been named yet, but we'll keep an eye on this one. This one is about the only region that I have any hope for of seeing any potential Earth-directed flares, or maybe, hopefully, some CMEs once this thing gets going and into the Earth-directed view. Storm Prediction Center, in terms of weather out here, got a slight chance of thunderstorms out here across California. It rained pretty good here this morning outside of Chico, California. Not for sure what we picked up yet in terms of accumulation, but there's no severe weather potential out here today, just mostly thunderstorm activity there in California and out in the east. And that's due to the low pressure system out here along the west coast, bringing with it some rain. It's kind of a warmer storm, not really expecting much in terms of snow activity. But that could change as we head into January. You're kind of expecting some colder air. The models have not popped up yet, so it's still kind of loading. We'll check that out a little bit later on this evening. But for now, stay safe out there, and make sure you have an earthquake plan. It's pretty important, I think, now than ever. You know, we get too complacent, I think, at least out here in California. And I remember out in Oregon, was it last year, a couple years ago, I went up there to observe some of the old tsunami deposits there along the Oregon coastline inland. And I was chatting to a few people about if they're concerned about, bigger earthquake activity there in Oregon. And most of them thought I was referring to the earthquake potential in Southern California as the big one, the San Andreas Fault, right? And that's no doubt going to be a big one, but that's not a subduction zone. The subduction zone sits right offshore of these people's livelihoods, their homes, their community, the Oregon coast. The Cascadia subduction zone has that potential of being the big one, the nightmare earthquake. And if that's not bad enough, the subsequent tsunami. So a lot of people uninformed or misinformed up there, at least the folks that I had chatted with, just local people there, not really aware of the potential. So I think it's very important to make sure you have your family members aware of what's going on, the potential of earthquake activity. And a lot of people get into that mindset, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, nothing I can do about it. Well, I would want to at least be prepared to limit the damage, and have a chance at survival. Always keep stuff on hand if I need to get out of here. Here in Chico, California, where I'm at, there's not a whole lot of, major potential of damage. Yes, we will feel the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake when it happens. I mean, a 9.0 will definitely feel it. But, if I lived along the Oregon coast, Northern California, Washington, Vancouver Island ranges, I would definitely, always have that on hand, because no one knows exactly when it's going to happen, when the next big one up there is going to happen. But the best thing to do is be prepared. If you want to survive it, and I would definitely want to survive it and continue to live, I would not want to go out that way. Yellowstone up here, super volcano, a little bit of activity stirring up here around the Grant Village area. I'm really not seeing it show up too strongly across other seismograph stations. So whatever's going on here across this area of Yellowstone is very localized and very small earthquake activity, but it's around Grant Village area. It could be ice. This was overnight. These look like earthquakes, though, but we're getting to that time of year here where, below zero conditions up there observed last night, and ice buildup and stuff like that do create ice quakes. It's pretty cool. The USGS put out a little article on that, I think a year or so ago, about seeing stuff like this on seismograph stations and the potential of what could it be. And most of the time it is some ice quakes out there. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have yourself a good Wednesday. Seismograph stations right now, like I said, a little spiky activity there across Yellowstone and Hot Caves. One little earthquake there in Southern Cal, but aside from that, things look minimal for right now across the seismos. We'll be back here a little bit later on this evening, unless something major happens. Of course, we'll jump right on. We'll catch you guys out here in a few hours.